Callum Knight didn't expect to have his day derailed by a 90-year-old woman throwing a spoon at his head. He ducked just in time, the utensil clinking harmlessly against the wall behind him. "You call that soup?" The woman barked from her wheelchair, glaring at the trembling nurse beside him. "My dog wouldn't eat that." Callum gave the nurse a quick nod to step aside, then crouched down in front of the elderly woman. "That bad, huh?" he asked with a grin. She squinted at him. "You're not the soup guy?" "No, ma'am, just visiting today." He held out his hand. "Callum," she sniffed but took it anyway. "I'm Sylvia, you're too handsome to be working here. What's your deal?" Callum chuckled. "I'm a CEO, I'm here doing a surprise check-in. My company donates to this place." Sylvia raised a brow. "You expect applause?" "No," he said easily. "Just trying to make sure the money's being used well." "And what do you know about old people, Mr. CEO?" "Honestly, not much," he admitted. She narrowed her eyes. "Then go talk to someone who's not throwing kitchenware. My granddaughter's here." "Go bore her instead." Before he could respond, a voice behind him said, "Grandma, are you terrorizing people again?" Callum turned and forgot how to breathe. The woman standing there was stunning, but not in a flashy, try-hard way. She wore jeans and a faded college hoodie, her long, dark hair thrown into a loose braid. Her eyes, bright, curious, and a little amused, met his, and something shifted inside him. "Hi," she said, smiling, stepping forward. "I'm Willow Clark. Sorry about her. She gets feisty when she skips her coffee." Sylvia huffed. "It's the soup, and he's a CEO apparently." Willow blinked. "Oh, wow, are you like here for PR or?" "Just checking in," Callum said, rising to his feet. "Callum Knight." Willow shook his hand, her fingers warm in his. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Knight. Call me Callum." "All right, Callum." She tilted her head. "You always inspect your donations this personally," he shrugged. "It's the first time, seemed overdue." She gave a half smile, and he couldn't tell if she was impressed or amused, probably both. Sylvia rolled her eyes. "He's cute, you should flirt more." "Grandma," Willow warned, her cheeks coloring, but Callum just laughed. "I don't mind." They ended up walking together down the hallway after Sylvia declared she needed alone time to recover from the soup trauma. Callum found himself asking questions about Willow instead of the facility. "So you visit often?" he asked. "Every week," she said. "More if I can. Grandma raised me," he nodded. "That explains the sass," she laughed. "She's the best. Sharp as ever, even if the food makes her violent." "And you, what about me? What do you do?" "I'm a freelance illustrator, mostly children's books, though I teach art classes on the side." "I admire that." She gave him a quick sideways glance. "You don't even know if I'm any good. You're here, that says enough." Willow looked at him for a moment as if trying to figure him out. "You're not what I expected." "Let me guess," he said. "You thought I'd be wearing a three-piece suit and barking orders into a Bluetooth headset." "Something like that." "Well, I left the headset in the car." They both laughed. When they returned to Sylvia's room, she was asleep. Willow adjusted the blanket over her shoulders, tenderly brushing a stray hair from her forehead. Callum watched her, something unfamiliar tightening in his chest. "You really love her," he said quietly. "She's my heart," Willow said, not looking away. He nodded slowly. "She's lucky to have you." Willow turned to him, eyes soft. "Thanks for checking on this place. Most people write a check and forget about it. I don't like forgetting things that matter." They stood there in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't feel awkward, just still. "Are you hungry?" Callum asked suddenly. Willow looked surprised. "Now. There's a place down the street. I could use a break from soup warfare." She hesitated. "Are you sure? I mean, you probably have 100 meetings to get back to." "I do," he admitted. "But I'd rather have lunch with you." Willow stared at him for a beat, then smiled. "All right, CEO. Let's see if your taste in food is better than your soup diplomacy." The restaurant he took her to wasn't flashy, small, warm, with wood-paneled walls and string lights overhead, but the second they walked in, the hostess gasped. "Mr. Knight? Of course, right this way." Willow raised an eyebrow. "You come here often?" "Once or twice." They were seated at a private corner booth with an actual velvet curtain that could be drawn. Willow blinked. Okay, this is a little fancier than I expected. I figured you deserved something nice, he said casually. Over lunch, they talked endlessly about her art, his company, growing up with Sylvia, the pressures of being in charge. Callum hadn't opened up like that in years. And judging by the way Willow leaned in, eyes never leaving his, she hadn't either. He ordered her dessert without asking, a slice of chocolate cake with raspberry drizzle and edible gold flakes. She laughed. Are you trying to impress me? He leaned forward. Is it working? Willow grinned. Maybe. When they eventually stepped outside, the air had cooled, the sky painted in soft pinks and oranges. I should get back, she said softly, but this was really unexpected, in a good way, in a good way. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Willow froze. Wait, what? He opened it to reveal a sleek silver pen, her initials engraved on the side. Relax, he chuckled. I'm not proposing, yet she laughed, breathless. You scared me for a second. I saw your sketches on the side of your notebook, he said. You're talented. I figured your hands deserved something better than a plastic pen. Willow took it slowly, staring down at the pen like it was something sacred. I don't know what to say. Just say you'll see me again. She looked up, eyes shining. Yeah, she whispered. I will. Callum watched her walk away, her braid bouncing behind her, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't care about the meetings he was missing. Because somewhere between a spoon-throwing grandma and a girl with paint on her hoodie, Callum Knight had lost something he never expected to find again. His heart. Callum waited 3 days before reaching out, not because he was playing games. He didn't do games. But because for once, he didn't want to bulldoze his way into someone's life. He wanted to be invited. But on the 4th morning, he found himself dialing the number she'd scribbled on a napkin at the end of their lunch. No assistant, no middleman, just him. She picked up on the 2nd ring. Callum, her voice was warm but surprised. Hey, I was hoping I could steal a little more of your time. A pause. Depends. Will there be edible gold involved again? He grinned. No promises. But I do have an idea. 2 hours later, he was standing outside a run-down brick building on the edge of the East End, holding 2 coffees and a small paper bag. Willow opened the door, paint smudged along her forearm, her braid now twisted into a messy bun. You brought caffeine. That's dangerous. I like living on the edge. She stepped aside, letting him in. I was hoping you wouldn't be the type to ghost after a grand gesture. I'm not the type to do anything halfway, he said, glancing around. The space was small but bursting with life. Canvases leaned against the walls, some finished, others only half covered in color. A long table was scattered with brushes, sketchbooks, and a few half-eaten granola bars. In the corner, a group of kids huddled over their drawings, completely absorbed. I teach a community art class here twice a week, Willow explained, noticing his gaze. Most of the kids come from the housing units a few blocks down. He handed her the coffee. That's why I brought these. She peeked into the bag. Croissants and mini muffins. I wasn't sure what would be a hit. One of the kids, a boy with oversized glasses and a gap-toothed grin, spotted the bag and bolted over. Miss Clark, can we have snacks? Willow crouched beside him. Only if you promise not to get crumbs in the paint water again. I promise on all my Legos, she laughed and handed him the bag. Distribute wisely, Liam. As the kids swarmed around with excited chatter, Callum leaned against the wall, watching Willow move among them like she belonged there. No airs, no pretenses, just someone who genuinely cared. She returned to him a few minutes later, brushing flour from her jeans. You sure you're okay here? Not exactly your usual scene. I've been in enough boardrooms to know this is a hell of a lot more honest. Willow studied him for a moment. You keep surprising me. I hope that's a good thing. It is, but it also makes me curious. About what? Why a man who could be anywhere is here? He met her gaze. Because this is where I want to be. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she turned and picked up a stack of blank paper from the supply shelf. You're staying then, unless you throw me out. In that case, she said, handing him a brush, you're on clean-up duty for the glitter station. Callum blinked. Glitter Station, she gave him a look. No turning back now, Mr. Knight. The next hour passed in a blur of laughter, spilled paint, and more glitter than he'd seen in his entire life. When the last child was picked up and the room finally quieted, Willow collapsed onto a stool, exhausted. "You're covered in purple," she said, pointing to his sleeve. "I think I bonded with a 6-year-old over a shared hatred of triangles." She laughed, then grew quiet. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to." She looked down at her hands. "Most people don't." Callum stepped closer. "Then they're idiots." She didn't look up. "You're used to women who wear heels and sip champagne in rooftop lounges. I'm not that." "I know," he said, "and that's exactly why I'm here." Willow finally met his eyes, something unreadable in her expression. "This doesn't feel real." "It does to me." She stood, brushing glitter off her shirt. "I should lock up. I'll walk you home." Willow hesitated. "It's only a few blocks." He didn't step back. "I don't want the night to end yet." They left the building side by side, the late evening air crisp but not cold. The streets were quiet, lit by the soft glow of street lamps and the occasional flicker of a neon sign. "You're not what I expected either," he said after a while. "Oh?" she asked, glancing over. "What did you expect?" "I'm not sure, but definitely not someone who makes me want to cancel meetings just to watch her hand out crayons." She smiled faintly. "That's a dangerous thing to say to a woman with a studio full of paint." "I like danger." Willow stopped at the entrance to a narrow building, her expression unreadable. "This is me." Callum looked up at the modest apartment. "You live alone." "Just me and the occasional dying houseplant." He hesitated. "Can I see you again?" "You already did today." "Then tomorrow." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to him. "What's this?" "A sketch," she said. "Of you from the other day." He opened it slowly. It was him sitting across the table at the restaurant mid-laugh, but it wasn't just a drawing, it was a moment, honest, unfiltered, completely vulnerable. "You see too much," he said quietly. Willow shrugged. "It's what I do." He folded the paper carefully, tucking it into his coat. "Then keep doing it." She smiled, the kind that didn't reach her lips but settled somewhere deeper. "Good night, Callum." He watched her disappear behind the door, the sketch still warm in his pocket. Something about this felt irreversible, and for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of what came next. Willow hadn't expected him to show up at her art exhibit. She'd invited him that morning in a half-joking tone, brushing it off as a small community thing at the cultural center downtown. Never truly believing Callum Knight would trade his world of private jets and boardroom battles for an evening spent among folding chairs and local artists. But there he was, not in a suit, not flanked by assistants or hidden behind a phone. Just him, leaning casually against the doorway in a deep navy sweater and dark jeans, his eyes already scanning the canvases with quiet interest. "You came," Willow said, startled as she stepped up beside him. "I didn't think you would." "I said I wanted to see you again, I meant it." Her heart thudded once hard. "Well, welcome to my version of glamour. There's boxed wine in paper cups near the back and a DJ who doubles as a dentist." "I like it," he said, looking around. "It's honest." She narrowed her eyes. "You always say things like that." "Like what?" "Like you're peeling back layers." Callum turned to her fully, his tone lower. "Maybe I am." Willow glanced away, suddenly hyper-aware of how close they were standing. "I didn't think you'd blend in here." "I'm not trying to blend in. You're not trying to impress anyone either." "I only care about impressing you." Before she could respond, one of the volunteers called her name, waving her over. "I have to go check on a display." "Don't let the dentist DJ sell you raffle tickets." As she walked away, Callum's gaze followed her. He wandered the exhibit slowly, pausing in front of a wide canvas splashed with deep earth tones. A girl stood alone in a field, her back to the viewer, wind tugging at her hair. The plaque underneath read, "Unspoken." He didn't have to guess who the artist was. "Most people stop at that one," said a voice behind him. He turned to see a tall man in paint-splattered pants, holding a clipboard and sipping from a mug that said "World's Okayest Artist." Willow Clark's piece, right? Callum asked. The man nodded. First time showing her work publicly. Took some convincing. She's talented. She's more than that. She's honest. That's rare in art, rarer in people. Callum studied the man's face. You're a friend of hers, something like that, he said, then offered a hand. Ezra. I run the studio half these folks came out of. Callum shook it. Callum? Ezra's eyes flicked with recognition. The Callum didn't answer. Ezra smiled faintly. She didn't say much about you, but she did say you listened. Callum's jaw tightened slightly. Is that unusual for her? Yeah, before Callum could reply, Willow returned, brushing a curl behind her ear. Sorry, the lighting over the sculpture wall was flickering again. Ezra gave her a nod. Fixed it yesterday, probably the wiring again. Willow glanced between the two men. You two met, we did, Ezra said, stepping back. I'll let you two admire unspoken in peace. Once he was gone, Callum turned to Willow. It's beautiful. I almost didn't bring it, she said, arms crossed loosely. It felt too personal. He looked at the painting again. It is. That's what makes it powerful. She bit her lip, then looked up at him. Do you ever feel like people only see the surface of you every day? And do you let them? I used to, he said. Lately. I don't want to. Willow held his gaze. That's why I painted her with her back turned. Callum nodded slowly. She's not hiding. She's choosing. Yes, around them the crowd buzzed with quiet conversations and soft music, but their little corner felt still. I have a question, Callum said. Willow tilted her head. Okay, have you always been this brave? Her brow furrowed. Brave, putting yourself out there like this in front of strangers, letting people see pieces of you? I don't think it's bravery, she said. I think it's survival. I spent years learning to stop apologizing for who I am. He stepped closer. Don't ever apologize. She gave him a shy smile, something softer than he'd seen from her before. I won't if you won't. They stood in silence for a beat too long. Then a loud voice called from the makeshift stage, announcing winners of the community raffle. The moment broke. Willow exhaled. I should probably help with cleanup soon. Callum looked down at her. Come with me for a drive after, she blinked. Now, after you're done here, she hesitated. Where? I don't know yet, just somewhere away from this. Willow studied him. You're serious. I'm always serious. She laughed under her breath. Okay, but only if you promise not to take me someplace with a valet. No valets. Just you, me, and whatever's playing on the radio. Deal. 2 hours later, they were on the road, the city lights fading behind them as they drove up a winding hill just outside the outskirts. The air grew cooler, and Willow tugged her coat tighter around her shoulders. You always drive yourself? Only when I want to remember I'm human. She looked out the window. This is beautiful. The car slowed, pulling off near a quiet overlook. Below them, the city shimmered like spilled stars. Callum turned off the engine. I come here when I need perspective. Willow stepped out, crossing to the railing. It's strange. From up here, everything looks so small, but down there, it all feels so loud. He joined her. You get used to the noise, but you start to crave the silence. Willow leaned on the railing. I used to think if I made enough art, if I helped enough people, I'd stop feeling like I was running from something. What are you running from? She hesitated, then said quietly, the fear that I'll always be the girl in the background, the one people pass by. Callum turned to face her. You don't blend in, Willow, not even close. She looked at him, and something fragile flickered in her eyes. And what are you running from? From being someone people only want for what I can give them. She reached out and gently took his hand. I don't want anything from you, Callum. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. They stood like that, side by side, the wind brushing past them, the world below silent for once, and in that stillness something shifted, not a declaration, not a promise, but a beginning. 2 weeks later, Callum stood beneath a canopy of fairy lights strung across the rooftop of his downtown penthouse, staring out at the skyline that had never felt so still. The rooftop had been transformed a long table adorned with hand-painted place cards set for 20, soft jazz floating from a nearby speaker, and a sunset that bathed the entire space in rose gold. It wasn't a business dinner. It wasn't a corporate gala. It was for Willow. He adjusted the cuffs of his dark shirt and checked his watch. She was 5 minutes late. Not that he minded waiting. When the elevator dinged, he turned. Willow stepped out, wearing a navy wrap dress that hugged her waist and fell just above her knees. Her hair was pinned back with small silver clips, and her expression was cautious, like she wasn't sure what she'd walked into. "I thought you said this was a dinner," she said as she walked toward him. "This looks like a wedding reception. Maybe I got carried away." She looked around slowly. "You planned all this?" "I had a little help," he said. "But yeah, every detail. You know I don't like being the center of attention." "You're not," he said. "Not tonight. This isn't a showcase, it's just dinner, with a few people who care about you." Willow's eyes flicked to the table again. "Who's coming?" Callum held out his hand. "Come find out." She hesitated for just a second before taking it. One by one, the elevator opened and filled the rooftop with the people from her world. Sylvia, in a floral scarf and her signature red lipstick, gripping the arm of Ezra, who looked mildly terrified of the heels he'd been forced into. Liam and 2 of the other kids from her art class, accompanied by their parents. A couple of her fellow artists from the community studio. Even the building manager from her apartment showed up with a homemade pie. Willow turned to Callum, eyes wide. "You invited them. They wanted to be here." "I only made the call." Sylvia clapped her hands. "So this is why you told me to wear something with sleeves." Willow covered her mouth, laughing. Dinner passed in a blur of clinking glasses and stories. Willow sat at the center of it all, listening, laughing, leaning into every person who spoke. And Callum. He watched her the entire time, not in the way a man watches a woman he desires, but in the way someone watches the life they never knew they needed gently unfold in front of them. When dessert was served, mini canvases, iced like paintings from her students, Willow leaned toward him. "I don't even know how to thank you for this." "You don't have to," he said. "I just wanted you to see what everyone else already sees." She looked down. "You keep doing that." "Doing what?" "Making it hard to ignore how much I feel when you're around." He reached for her hand beneath the table, warm and steady. "I don't want you to ignore it." Later, as the guests drifted out one by one, Callum brought Willow to the far end of the rooftop where a small easel stood draped in a linen cloth. She paused. "What is this?" "Something I've been working on." "You paint now?" "Not exactly," he said, lifting the cloth. What she saw made her breath catch. It was a large canvas, but instead of paint, it was filled with dozens of small photographs. Willow teaching at the studio, adjusting Sylvia's scarf at the nursing home, laughing with Liam, sketching with chalk on a sidewalk. In the center, one photo stood out. It was her, standing in front of her own painting at the exhibit. Callum had taken it without her realizing, capturing the exact moment she'd looked proud of herself, just for a second. "You've been collecting these?" she asked quietly. "I had help from Ezra and a few of your students. I wanted you to see yourself the way I do." She stepped closer, reaching out to touch the frame. "No one's ever done something like this for me. They should have." Willow turned slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing all of this?" "Because I'm in love with you." The words hit the air like gravity. She stared at him. "You're serious?" "I've never been more." Willow took a step toward him. "You're Callum Knight. You could have anyone. You could be anywhere." "I don't want anyone else." "And there's nowhere else I'd rather be." Her eyes shimmered, and when she finally smiled, it wasn't uncertain, it wasn't hesitant, it was full. "I love you too," she said. "I think I have since the day you let my grandmother throw a spoon at your head." He laughed as he pulled her into his arms. "She was a great wingman." Willow leaned into him, her voice muffled against his chest. "I don't want this to end." "It won't," he said. "Not if you'll have me." She looked up. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," he said, reaching into his pocket not for a ring but for a small silver key, "I want you in my life, every morning, every night, not as a guest, as a partner." She stared down at the key in his hand. "This is too fast," she whispered. "I know, it's reckless, probably. And I want it," he smiled, sliding the key into her hand. "Then take it." They stood beneath the lights, the city burning behind them, the rooftop quiet now but for the wind and the sound of two hearts finally, fully aligned. Willow kissed him first. And Callum, the man who'd once believed he could never be truly seen, let go of every carefully constructed wall. Because in a quiet nursing home filled with forgotten stories, he'd met the only woman who'd ever made him feel like more than a name on a skyscraper. And now, with her in his arms, he finally understood what it meant to come home. The first thunderclap sounded just as Willow stepped out of the gallery and into the street, her heels clicking against the wet pavement. The rain had started while she was inside finalizing the deal for her first ever solo exhibit, and now the sky had opened fully, drenching the city in sheets of silver. She didn't rush. There was something poetic about the storm, about the way it made the world slow down. She turned the corner and spotted him. Callum stood beside a black vintage car holding a single black umbrella. He didn't wave or call out. He simply waited. "You look like a movie scene," she said when she reached him, her breath fogging the air between them. "I was hoping for that," he replied, stepping forward to hold the umbrella over her head. "Congratulations. How do you already know I have my ways?" He opened the car door. "Willow Clark, featured artist at the Sterling Gallery. Has a nice ring to it." She slid into the passenger seat, shaking the water from her curls. "I didn't think they'd go for it." "You didn't think you were ready, that's different." As he pulled into traffic, Willow glanced at him. "Where are we going? You'll see." The city gave way to winding roads lined with pine trees. The rain softened to a mist as they climbed higher, and by the time Callum turned onto a gravel path, the clouds had begun to break apart. Willow leaned forward. "Where are we? You'll know in a minute." He parked beside a wrought iron gate and stepped out, coming around to her side to open the door. They walked together through the gate, past tall hedges and rows of trimmed lavender until the house came into view. It wasn't a mansion. It was a home. White stone, ivy-covered walls, tall windows that glowed softly from within. A wide porch with two rocking chairs, a garden that stretched beyond the fence. Willow slowed to a stop. "This isn't your penthouse." "It's not. I bought it last week." She turned to him. "Why?" "Because the penthouse never felt like somewhere to build a life. This place does." Her voice was barely audible. "You bought a house for us, for whenever you're ready." She looked down at the gravel path. "That's a lot." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "Then let's make it smaller." She took it, fingers trembling slightly as she opened the flap. Inside was a folded piece of paper, handwritten, one sentence, "I don't want forever to start without you." She looked up at him, her throat tight. "I thought you said you weren't proposing yet." "I'm not," he said. "Not until you tell me you're ready, but I am asking you to move in, to build this life with me, and when the time comes, I'll say yes," she whispered. "Whenever you ask, I'll say yes." Callum stepped closer, his hand finding hers. "You've changed everything, Willow." She blinked fast, trying to push down the tears. "I didn't mean to, I know. That's what makes it real." They walked through the front door together. Inside, the house smelled faintly of cedar and fresh paint. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal. But in the hallway, beneath the staircase, one thing had already been hung, her painting. Unspoken. Willow stopped in front of it. "You kept it?" "I bought it the day after the exhibit. You didn't tell me. I wanted to hang it here, where it belonged." She turned to him. "This doesn't feel real." "It is," he said. "Everything we've built, everything ahead. It's all real." That night, they sat together on the porch, wrapped in a blanket as the sky cleared and stars returned. No more questions, no more uncertainty, just the quiet peace of two lives finally aligned. The following months unfolded like a slow, beautiful melody. Willow moved into the house at the edge of the lavender fields, her studio set up in the sunroom where the light poured in from three sides. She painted with abandon, her work now filled with color and emotion she'd never dared reach for before. Callum commuted less, choosing to work from the home office overlooking the garden. He spent mornings making coffee for her and evenings listening as she described the characters in her latest illustration project. He never missed a dinner, never let a day pass without reminding her through small gestures and words that she was his beginning and his end. Sylvia visited on weekends, often pretending to hate the countryside while secretly loving the fresh air and lemon scones Willow baked just for her. Ezra stopped by once a month to drop off supplies and stay for dinner, reluctantly admitting that Callum wasn't as uptight as he'd expected. The kids from the art class mailed her drawings constantly, some of which Willow framed and hung in the hallway. One crisp Sunday morning, as they stood in the back garden planting hydrangeas, Callum turned to her. "I have a question." Willow raised an eyebrow. "If it's about the mulch again, I already said we're not using the synthetic kind," he laughed. "No. Not about mulch." He pulled a velvet box from his pocket and opened it. This time it was a ring, simple, elegant. A thin gold band with a single sapphire deep blue, the same color as the dress she'd worn the night he fell in love with her on the rooftop. "I'm not asking for a perfect life," he said. "I'm asking for a real one with you." Willow's eyes brimmed and she nodded before he could even finish. "Yes," she said. "Yes to every messy, beautiful part of it." They married in the garden the following spring, beneath a canopy of wisteria and a sky so blue it looked painted. Liam served as the ring-bearer, grinning the entire time. Sylvia gave a toast that had everyone in tears, even Ezra. And when Willow walked down the aisle barefoot, flowers woven into her braid, Callum swore the air left his lungs entirely. They danced for hours on the porch under the stars, wrapped in each other. Years passed, but the feeling never faded. The house filled with laughter, with shared mornings and whispered goodnights. With canvases leaning against every wall and Callum's, jackets draped over the backs of chairs. With burnt toast on Mondays and quiet dinners on Thursdays, and the occasional spoon still hurled by Sylvia, who insisted on keeping her title as resident firecracker. Callum never stopped looking at Willow like she was the first sunrise he'd ever seen, and Willow never stopped choosing him. Not once, not ever,